Thank you for your question. Team 1 has taken the position that pets are not ethically distinguishable just because we care about them. So many of us have pets whom we love and treat like family members, and we would be repulsed by the idea of ever ending up killing and then eating them for food. However, our team does not think there's a distinction between companion animals and animals that we eat for food. First of all, the reason this case seems to be an issue is because of misconceptions between harm and offense. And my teammate Paolo will define those terms in the context of this case and how they support our position. Secondly, Chloe is going to explain the premise of why we eat animals and how it actually boosts social utility and why we should continue to do so. Additionally, Chloe will explain why we believe they are indistinguishable with regards to animals' rationale and conscience. Victor will explain the conditions under which we believe it's permissible to eat animals, even if we care about them. Henry will explain some of the objections to our position that animals are not distinguishable just because we care about them. And lastly, Paolo will provide an anecdote that will clearly illustrate our point and convey our conception of the lack of difference between food and companion animals.
Just to restate what Colleen just said, we believe that this case is based on the balance between harm versus offense. In this case, we believe that offense will be defined as some type of conduct producing an unpleasant or uncomfortable experience for anybody involved. Now, if I mention that I would eat my own dog, that is something that in our society would make most people uncomfortable because this is not what is socially acceptable to us. And by harm, we believe is a violation of a person's rights, which involves a setback of their interest. Now, if somebody else eating their dog, it's not a violation that would set me back. Now, if somebody else were to eat my dog, that is my pet, then in that case, there is a harm involved.
So Team 1 believes that pets are not ethically distinguishable just because we care about them, and that's underlined by the fact that we believe it is ethical for humans to eat meat. We believe humans should eat meat for factors relating to human welfare and social utility. You know, it's natural, we're built to eat meat as humans, we're part of the food chain. People have needed to eat meat to survive, sometimes only meat to survive throughout history. Technically and biologically, food and companion animals are not distinguishable from each other. They both don't have rational capacities like humans, they don't have any type of consciousness, and the only reason that we get confused by this is because of our personal relationships with the animals. Victor's now going to talk about the conditions in which it is permissible to eat meat.
Team 1 believes that it's only permissible to eat other animals if and only if these animals are humanely killed and breeded. An example of an inhumane practice that we would not support for eating animals would be force feeding, because we actively know that we are harming the animal and harm is unethical. Now, Henry will address some potential objections to our stance.
So thank you, Victor. Team 1 would like to acknowledge a couple of objections that could contest our argument. Our argument being that pets cannot be ethically distinguished between species. The first objection we encounter would probably be that animals feel pain and happiness just as humans do. So we should not kill them because it impedes their right to life without necessary pain. So Team 1 would like to respond to that by saying that for our actions or for our argument to be moral, as Victor mentioned, before they would have to be killed in a humane way that couldn't inflict any pain at all. So limiting the pain that would become as death is how we would respond. The second objection we anticipate is that animals have a utility of their own, regardless of our utility, which should allow them to live a life ultimately unaffected by humans. And so Team 2 would most likely respond to that by saying that utility really isn't a sufficient counterpart for moral standing. And so as stated actually earlier in our argument, animals don't have a conscience, making them inherently inferior to humans, ultimately supporting our argument that pets cannot be ethically distinguished between species. And so furthermore, we look forward to any objections that may be presented that could that could output potential discourse. And now Paula will present an anecdote explaining our argument.
Thank you, Henry. When I was in grade school, back in my home country of Paraguay, we had two teachers that were Filipinos. And one day word got out that they killed one of their dogs and ate it. And this caused a huge uproar, and people it created a whole bunch of rumors around the town, and everybody, whoever's dog or cat went missing, the first thing that they said, oh, the Filipinos ate it, and they suffered a severe backlash because of one of the practices that is actually quite common in their country. And now, this could be, same thing could happen in a case where somebody that is used to eating beef would go into a country that is, for either religious or normal practices, do not eat it. And we believe that in this case, tying it back to our original argument, this is just a case between harm versus offense, and even though we might be offended about somebody eating something that we're not used to, which would be a pet, it's not actually harming us. So therefore, it is ethical for them to do so.
So once again, we don't believe that pets are ethically distinguishable from other species or that we would typically consider to be food animals just because we care about them. While it's uncomfortable to think about the fact that someone could potentially eat my beloved golden retriever one day, I do not believe that there is any unethical principle about that distinguishes him from a different wild dog in a different environment. So we look forward to hearing Team 2's comments and critique of our presentation and hope to elaborate on our position further.